Hey there, everyone. Joshua Shore with you in our WNDU newsroom in South Bend, Indiana, where we're following a rapidly developing story at this hour here where we are. It is 10:30 Eastern Time where I am, and it is 9:30 Central Time where the Bears still are located right now in Chicago. Could that change is the question. You see it there. The Bears, they are moving closer to potentially being here in Indiana. And I say that because we've gotten some of the most significant developments here in the last hour as that move is going to be potentially made here. They have moved to strike, hopefully, that stadium deal. I say move closer because things have not passed, technically have not passed just yet. We're talking about SB 27, that is Senate Bill 27. They are hoping that the House of Representatives pass that. If they do, you can all but bet that the Bears will probably be moving to Hammond. Now, let me give you exactly what the governor said a short time ago, and then I will give you some context surrounding all of this here momentarily. It's a lot to unpack, so I'm going to try to walk you through it here based on what we're getting. So this is from the governor's office this morning. Indiana Governor Mike Braun, House Speaker Todd Houston, Senator Ryan Mishler of Mishawaka, by the way, who we are trying to get to join us live on this broadcast. As we get that, we'll let you know. And Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott announced today the framework to build a new world-class stadium for the Chicago Bears in Northwest Indiana. The leaders urged the Indiana House of Representatives to pass that bill we just talked about, Senate Bill 27, which establishes the Northwest Indiana Stadium Authority. The proposed legislation passed out of committee this morning. The governor, he went on to say, quote, Indiana is open for business. He went on to say this, and this is a relatively remarkable development here. We've identified a promising site near Wolf Lake in Hammond and established a broad framework for negotiating a final deal. The amendment to Senate Bill 27 puts forth the essential framework to complete the assignment contingent upon site due diligence proceeding smoothly. At this point, I want to just make sure you guys are aware. It has already passed committee. So at this point, SB 27, which already passed the Senate, the state Senate, must pass the House of Reps. Well, it's already passed committee. That is important for you to know. In fact, it passed, from what we understand, 24-0 this morning. So that is why things are, at least at this point, moving a little bit more with traction now at this hour. That is the remarkable development that we want to pass along to you from our newsroom. I'm going to show you a map for those of you who don't know of the area we're talking about here, the area that is Hammond, Indiana, momentarily. But before I do that, I want to actually read you a little bit of a statement that was from Todd Houston today, citing the Bears directly. So this is technically what the Bears said, and again, this is from Todd Houston's mouth. I'm going to read it in full. Quote, the passage of SB 27 marked the most meaningful step forward in our stadium planning efforts to date. We are committed to finishing the remaining site-specific necessary due diligence to support our vision to build a world-class stadium near the Wolf Lake area in Hammond, Indiana. We appreciate the leadership shown by Governor Braun, Speaker Houston, Senator Mishler, and members of the Indiana General Assembly in establishing this critical framework and path forward to deliver a premier venue for all of Chicagoland and a destination for Bears fans and visitors from across the globe, rather. We value our partnership and look forward to continue to build our working relationship together. Now, and one of my producers is over my shoulder. I'm going to fact check this with him really quickly, but I believe there was something talked about earlier today. It was a planned meeting today with state officials in Illinois that was canceled, right? That was canceled today. And that could say a lot about what process we're in right now. Not sure if the cancellation had to do with this announcement. Not sure if the cancellation had to do with something else going on in the State House in Illinois. But there were some talks, obviously. The big topic in Chicago, the Bears moving out of state, or will it stay in Chicago, or at least in the Chicagoland area? At this point, if you're in Chicago, from Chicago, you know that there's talks about Arlington Heights, which was a big topic of conversation. But at this point, and the Chicago Bears already owns that land, it seems that it went from talks to whispers as Indiana entered the chat, right? And so Indiana is now no longer a possible player in this. They are a front runner in these conversations right now. I'm looking at my phone because I'm checking, but there is I am trying to get the information for someone, and so I will get to that in a second. So forgive me, I'm head on a swivel at this moment. But yeah, this is the breaking news at this moment, and I think it's big news, especially if you're a Bears fan. We can tell you that we are already somewhat getting some reaction right now. Our Lauren Moss has actually reached out to Hammond's mayor, who is in Indianapolis right now, if that tells you anything. We are waiting for his availability so we could talk to him, but we can tell you he is aware of our inquiry, or at least his office is at this point. We can tell you that there is Indiana State Police has different posts throughout the state, and so you have different regions, if you will. One region close to Indy has already changed their cover photo to Bears-related team information, so that's pretty significant as well. There's a hope right now in the air for those who are in Indiana who are Bears fans. What I want to do is I want to bring up a map for you guys to show you exactly where we're talking about. The area that they talked about is right here. This is Hammond, Indiana. And Hammond, Indiana is right across the Illinois border. And you can see Wolf Lake is right here. This is the area that we're talking about, of interest at the very least. I can try to zoom out here so you guys can get better perspective of where we're relating to Chicago. You can see the Chicago area is right over here. This is shaded in red, where we're talking about that big time, remarkable potential development of where things could go, could be right in this area here. So anyways, all of this is moving really, really quickly, as you can imagine, with this potential move. You're starting to see ESPN and all these other big time sports related entities and media outlets posting things out there. Obviously, WTHR has a story up. That's our sister station, NBC affiliate in Indianapolis, that has some new reporting, brand new reporting, just updated by Mike Potter there in Indianapolis. And again, this is just a remarkable development when you're talking about all that has happened in the last several months, really the better part of 2 years, as there has been conversations after conversations of potentially moving from Chicago to a different location in Chicago. But it was only recently that we got this new information about where it could go next, being here in Indiana. That was in the last couple months. And so that is something that we're keeping our eyes peeled on, and something that we are taking very seriously here in our newsroom, and it's something that we are going to continue to report on. So we were just on this set, Lauren Moss and I, talking about another city in Indiana that's jockeying for position, right? We've told you about Gary at one point. Several other places in Indiana have put their hat in this ring to bring a new stadium here. And that's why this is significant. I want to show you guys, you see that lower third there, it says Senate Bill 27. So what is that? So basically, this would establish, and I'm trying to put it in layman's terms because it can get very confusing and very clustered very quickly. But this would establish an Indiana Stadium Authority, basically allowing the moving parts to be set in place to build what they're calling world-class stadium. And then that gets things moving on a fiscal standpoint, money-wise, financially, to get things moving. One of the things that I was reading in an article, the Bears are going to be investing some money into this as well, based on what we are reading right now. In fact, Houston said the Bears were committed to contributing $2 billion toward the project. He said that during a hearing for a bill earlier today. Again, this stadium authority for Northwest Indiana would issue bonds to build a stadium. And under the language of the bill, the technically unnamed team, we're assuming the Bears, would pay down the bonds. When the bonds were paid off, the team would be sold to the stadium for $1. So that walks you through a little bit of the stadium authority and how things work on a state level and on a fiscal level. And then obviously from a state lawmaker standpoint, why passing this bill opens up potential opportunity for a sports team, the Bears, we believe, to be here in Northwest Indiana. So again, that's the breaking news we wanted to bring to you as we were getting it. The Bears are moving a step closer to striking that stadium deal in Indiana. A remarkable development. When you talk about Bears fans, all their lives, if you are a Bears fan, you know Bears, synonymous with the city of Chicago, the second city, right? You talk about a place that is people would say in its own right, historic in Soldier Field. Well, Soldier Field is not big enough. I can tell you that I worked as a tour guide in Chicago for 4.5 years, and the big complaint from everybody who'd come on that bus internationally would talk about how, when you look at it, it was one of the smallest stadiums that they've ever seen. From the outside looking in, you go inside, you're talking about feeding a packed crowd at best, just over 70,000, maybe at best, depending on the layout, whether there's a stage, whether there's a walk or whatever. So you got 70,000 people that can fit in there. Well, you're talking about other places, college stadiums that can actually fit over 100,000 people. One of the reasons, and it's a historic landmark, which is why there has been no structural changes outside of Soldier Field. Here I go becoming a tour guide again, I guess. But that's one of the big complaints from a lot of the fans there, is that it is not world class. It is not big enough. You can't match up with what you see in LA and what you see in other places around the National Football League. And so that's been one of the big complaints from Bears fans. And obviously, Bears brass, they've been listening. And so now we're trying to see what's next in this regard, right? This historic landmark that is Soldier Field in Chicago can only seat a certain amount of people, 65,000 plus, just over, I believe, that amount. I don't have the number in front of me, forgive me. I can tell you that I've been there several times, and it is, you know, for the team that is the Chicago Bears and for the season they just had, you would think if you're going to an NFL game for the first time, you wouldn't expect it to be so tight in certain places. That's the controversy about that place itself. But people thought, in Chicago at least, well, it'll stay in Illinois at best. It's a Chicago team. Right? There's never been a Chicago team outside of, based on my knowledge, outside of Illinois. You got the Chicago Fire. They were in Bridgeview, right? I'm just thinking about some of the teams there, but still in Cook County, right? And so you got that. You got technically, you know, you got all these other teams that are in the Chicago area or in the Chicagoland area, or at the very least, Cook County. And so that's a little bit of the Chicago and me getting out there just to help substantiate this reporting. But just to give you guys a look into why this is such a big deal right now, this could be a move to move the Bears out of Illinois altogether. Not just out of the city, not just out of the county, but out of the state. And that is something we are keeping our eyes peeled on. Obviously, we'll continue to let you know what happens. But 2001 was when those things happened. Give me 1 second. What does that say? Oh, perfect. No, it's a huge issue. So, no, exactly. So I just got a note from my assignment editor, and most of us in this newsroom has been to Soldier Field, whether it's for a game or something else. And he brings up a good point. Parking is also a big issue. And he sent me this note because that's not only an issue, it's the accessibility to Soldier Field for a lot of people. And then it's leaving Soldier Field. Yep. So, and that's the other part. So you got, for those of you who don't know, and I can try to bring up a map, you got Soldier Field, which is right off Lakeshore Drive. And unless you're parking on the museum campus, as they call it, because you've got Soldier Field, then you've got the Field Museum, Shed Aquarium, you've got all these museums in this area where Soldier Field is. Then you talk about running into a problem. So let's say you don't drive there directly onto the campus. You've got to take the L, you got to take the red line or orange line, drops you off on Roosevelt, and then you've got to walk half a mile under a bridge to get over, and then you've got the traffic issue, so they won't let you cross until some of these folks are parked. And so you got the standing room of traffic on Lakeshore Drive, and it's right in the middle of downtown Chicago, right on the outskirts of downtown Chicago. So parking is an issue for a lot of people there. A lot of Bears fans have always talked about traffic being an issue there. A lot of Bears fans have always talked about this idea of, if you've gone to a concert there, you've experienced the gridlock there. So there's a lot that people have always complained about Soldier Field, but you've never heard people complain about, well, it shouldn't be in Chicago. Again, Arlington Heights has been the center of this conversation for years. Obviously, the Bears own that property. But now you're talking about potentially moving, again, out of the state altogether, out of the city, out of the county, has nothing to do with Illinois. And that is something that is, again, a remarkable development. That is something that is big time for folks there. I've been told I need to take a commercial, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a break, and then we'll try to wrap this up for you guys. I'll check my phone here because we are trying to reach out to Senator Ryan Mishler as well. Again, that's the guy who actually wrote this and authored this bill that we are seeing is very close to passing the House of Representatives, which could mean a big deal for folks, for Bears fans in our area as well. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in the newsroom in just a second. All right, everyone. Hello, we're back. Just want to wrap up here if we can. We're trying to get someone on the phone, Ryan Mishler, state senator, who actually authored that bill, that Senate Bill 27, which passed committee 24-0. A major, remarkable deal. Senate bill passing the committee, meaning that it now needs to just be passed by the House, and in comes the Bears potentially. That is the belief here. You are looking at a map of the area of Hammond. That is all of Hammond outlined and shaded in red there. And then the specific part that I'm going to try and zoom in here just so you can see it better is this area here. This is the area where the Bears are trying to potentially, they're at least looking at this site. I'm looking for Wolf, they call it Wolf Lake, and forgive me, I can't find it here, so I'm trying to look on another map to show you guys. But this would be Wolf Lake area where they're trying to put this thing, and this would be remarkable. And if it happens, obviously you will know. This is the Wolf Lake area here, and I'll bring this up in full so you can see it. But this is the area, and I mean, it is truly a big moment right now. We've reached out to some folks with the Bears specifically for a comment. No word back from those folks yet. We are trying to get as much as we can to supplement this reporting without dipping into any type of conjecture or untruths. But you know, at this point, this is it's a big deal. It is a big deal, to say the least. So, with that, City of Hammond is a strong partner in finalizing the deals of this transformational project. That is the quote from Governor Braun himself in this statement here. We're going to have much more on this, obviously, starting tonight at 5 o'clock on WNU after the Olympics. And then we'll have the very latest information, hopefully. Emma Brott is on the story today. Emma, you're on the story today, right? Yeah, Emma's on the story. Our senior reporter, Emma Brott, is on the story today. So she's going to be following this. She is from Chicago, so, you know, no bias will be shown, but she's from Chicago, and go Bears. And we'll see what happens. Obviously, following the year that they had more of ammunition, let's just call it, for the Bears. They had a little bit more ammunition to move forward with, potentially saying, hey, look at the success. Look at what's happened to the city during the playoffs and right before the playoffs and during the season. So they've used that, some would say. And obviously, Kevin Warren, who leads the leadership for the Bears as CEO, has done a lot in his prior history. If you look up his history, you will find what he has done for other, not just teams that he's worked for, but leagues that he's worked for. And he's made Forbes top 50 before, and he's done a lot when it comes to business acumen. And so you got that. That is something that we've been following and tracking as well. You got a lot of local connections, obviously. to the Chicago Bears news. I'd be curious to hear from some of the alum. I think of people like Chris George, obviously, who is a friend of the station, who's played for the Bears, who's played with the Bears, who's played for Notre Dame. So I'm curious about his thoughts on this potentially moving back to, or moving to Indiana, a place that, you know, and this is interesting because you look at a player like Chris George, you look at where he's from, you look at, you know, the fact that he went to CVS and he lived literally on the east side of Chicago and only had to travel 90 minutes his entire football career from Notre Dame to the Bears, right? I'm curious on his thoughts about this move and things like that. So we'll probably try to reach out to him and see if he has anything to add to this. So that's the update. That's the breaking news. Again, we've also, our Lauren Moss has reached out to folks in Hammond, the mayor of Hammond. His office is aware of our request, our inquiry. According to them, we have been the first station to reach out to them, and so that is something that we're trying to follow up on. He is in Indianapolis right now, which gives you an inkling as to the speed in which this is moving right now. Obviously, we'll continue to follow all angles of this. We've got a lot more to get to on this stream. We've got weather to get to on this stream here. The First Alert Weather Team is going to update you here momentarily, so stay right here. We're going to continue to stream throughout the day and bring you breaking news as it warrants here on our Digital Plus streaming apps, wherever you're watching us as well. And, of course, you can watch us on the air as well on WNDU and all the updates. We've got a story devoted to this right now at WNDU.com. We appreciate you guys watching this, and we'll see you guys soon. Of course, go Bears.